All right. First of all, thanks for coming. I know it's early on, but again, we just talked about this. I think if you grab some of this information, hey V, if you grab this information now you can take some of this and work on some of this as you get going, okay? So follow along with the notes if you want. We're going to talk about the swing in the bat, good old softball swing. I've been coaching for 30 years, coached junior college baseball for 23, did a little high school coaching, a little travel ball coaching, so on and so forth. So been doing this a long time. Played back in the day, as most of us did, high school baseball, college baseball. Got a little educated on this subject matter, on hitting and throwing through college, and then of course as a coach and a player. So I'm happy to share whatever I know with you guys. I like to take scientific principles in the game and turn them and make them simple for you to understand. So if I say anything that you don't understand, please raise your hand so I can clarify it. Because I won't be following you around the country to watch you play. So we're going to educate you enough today to make you dangerous, all right? To at least be able to help yourself, and then maybe even be able to help a teammate or two along the way, okay? So let's get into it. If you'll notice, there's some body parts involved in hitting, and we're going to start from the ground and work up. We're going to talk about the feet, then we're going to talk about the hips, then we're going to talk about the hands, all right, and then finally the head. So those are the body parts, and those are very important in hitting, and once you understand some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, it'll kind of clear up some things, all right? So let's start with the stance. Anybody want to pick out who swings with an open stance? Raise your hand. Everybody know what an open stance is? Open stance is when you get in the box and your left foot, your front foot is slightly open. Sometimes when we do that, why does anybody hit with an open stance? Why?
Starts your hips on it too.
Okay, it helps. It gets your hips already open a little bit.
It's the same thing.
Okay. Some people do it because of dominant eye versus dominant eye. If the right eye is your dominant eye, sometimes it's better to open up a little bit so you can see a little more with your dominant eye. If your left eye is your dominant eye, you'll have no problem being here. All right, does anybody hit with a closed stance? Okay, why?
Got it off a video.
Okay. Some people that hit with a closed stance, and that would mean, let's say this is our hitting zone. A closed stance would mean your right foot, your front foot is
That's not me.
is inside, slightly closed, whatever it is. All right. Some people will do that to help keep the front shoulder closed a little bit. All right. So there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody swing straight up? Standing straight up? Does anybody get into a little baseball swing and have a little bit more of a wider base? Okay. Let me tell you about, there is no one stance that's better than the other. Okay. You get in the box and you stand whatever makes you comfortable. If it's an open stance, great. If it's a closed stance, great. And I'm going to tell you why. Again, some of these times I want you to ask why. Don't just listen to me and say, oh, okay. Sometimes challenge me. All right, ask me why. All right. So here's why the stance is no big deal. I'll refer back to baseball a lot because these two games are married together. Okay, and most of us played baseball growing up, and I don't think I can tell you any stories about professional softball players that will relate to you. But I can tell you a story about Barry Bonds and Hank Aaron and stuff like that, and that we can relate to that, right? So anyway, if you'll watch some of the major leaguers, all right, you'll see all different kind of stances. There was some that stood here. There was some that stood here. All right. Back in our day, we had Willie Stargell, that did all kind of stuff going on. We had Joe Morgan, who would flip his back elbow. We had Rod Carew that swung with a flat bat. They say that Cal Ripken changed his stance about 75 times over the course of his career. All right. So the stance is overrated, guys. Again, get in there and stand however comfortable you want. Let me show you what's common about all of these. Let's say you start with a closed stance. Now you've got to look over your front shoulder. Again, hopefully your left eye is your dominant, but my expression is this. Repeat after me. Nothing important happens until your front foot hits the ground. Got it? That's a scientific principle. Nothing important happens in hitting until your front foot hits the ground. So it doesn't matter how you start. You can start here, but when you step, you're going to be here. You can start open, but when you step, you're going to be here. All right? You can start straight up with a bat on your shoulder. You can start straight up, you know, with this. But watch what happens when my front foot hits the ground. Ready? All right. The trick is to get into that position right here. This is called our launch position. From here, we're ready to go. How do we get there? It doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't slow you down or put you in position to fail. All right? So, and that's the same thing with, you know, you can go here, but watch what happens when that foot hits the ground. Look how similar everything is. All right? See any of these people? I don't care what you do in your woggle. I don't care what you do in your stance. All right? It doesn't matter because nothing important happens until when? The front foot hits the ground. Why? Why is that important?
It's the first step of hitting the ball. It's the transfer of weight. Transfer of the weight. Yeah.
Okay.
Power of weight.
Here's the
Turn
reason.
the body around on the front
We
foot.
get our energy from the ground. We get our energy from the ground. If you ever try to hit off of a piece of ice, you're not going to hit it anywhere. We get our energy from the ground. So nothing important happens until that front foot gets down. The trick is you got to get it down. You can't be late getting your front foot down. And that's why in baseball, they simplify a little bit. They don't have as much time as we do in softball. That pitch is coming 94, 98 miles an hour these days. All right? So they have to spread out, and their front foot does very little. All right? In softball, we can do whatever. We got time to, you know, we got time to do all kinds of crazy stuff with that front foot. But it's still got to get down in order to initiate the movement. We get our energy from the ground. What evidence do we leave behind that verifies that? Anything? What happens to that batter's box?
Dig a hole.
It gets torn up, doesn't it? Why is that hole being dug? Because we're getting our energy from the ground. The friction of our feet against the ground is what gives us a foundation for our energy to start. You with me?
Yeah.
That's why it gets torn up. We're going to spit on the back toe. All right? We're going to get the front foot down. We're going to work a little bit of torque in the legs. All right? So that's going to get our energy going. So our energy comes from the ground and our feet. And where are we trying to move that energy to?
The bat.
To the bat, to our hands. All right? Everybody with me on that? All right, so let's keep that important. Now the stride is the next thing. Now let's get the foot down. The stride is important because A, we got to get the foot down. And what we don't want to do with the stride is put you in position to fail. All right? So in other words, if you're looking good and all of a sudden you dive, you step in, all right, what that does is it locks your hips down a little bit and it's harder for you to rotate your hips. And we're going to talk about that next. All right? So what we don't want to do is we don't want to step across our body. We can start here and step here, but we don't want to dive into the ball. That's going to lock out the hips a little bit. We also don't want to be nice in our stance and then do this. We don't want to step out. Why? Because that's opening your hips on the step and not on the swing. We don't want the hips to clear until the hands are coming through. So we don't want to take a bad stride. What about an overstride? You ever see anybody go way out here? Why is that bad? It's harder to rotate. We're going to get into that next. But I want you to watch my head. Watch where my head starts. And if I take a big stride, where'd my head go?
Down.
Down and forward. All right? We're going to talk about the head last, but we don't want the head to move a lot. Why? Because there's an important feature. There's an important body part that's in our head. What is it?
Brain.
And it all starts right here, right? It starts with the eyes, and then it goes to the brain, and then it goes to the hands. All right, getting ahead of myself there. But anyway, the stride is important because we don't want to stride and put ourselves in trouble. Now, you got 2 strikes on you, and they throw you a pitch on the inner half. Sometimes you have to do what? Sometimes you got to open up a little bit with your stride just so you can hit that 2-strike pitch and keep it fair. Or if they throw you a little breaking ball, the wind catches it, and that baby starts running away from the board, sometimes you got to do what to hit it? You may have to step into it and throw the hands just to put it in play because you're not sure of your strike zone, right? So yes, sometimes you can step to the ball to help you out, but most of the time we want to be specific and similar. We want to do the same thing with our feet every time, guys. And that's pick it up, put it down, usually in line to the pitcher, all right? And usually just beyond shoulder's width. You don't want to short stride yourself either. You don't want to just be right here. You're going to lose your balance. So the stride wants to be just outside the shoulders, just beyond shoulder's length, all right? And keep ourselves in balance. You with me?
Yeah. I got
All right.
a question.
Yes, sir.
Do your stride. Is there any advantage to like pointing the toe at the post and leaving it in?
Opening your front foot.
Does that open bring your hips around?
Well, it depends on what you're hitting off of. If you're hitting off a turf, you may need to open up that front foot a little bit, all right, so you can rotate the hips. If you land closed, all right, you've got to be able to spin a little bit in order to get your hips through, all right? But usually it's a 45-degree angle, half open, half closed. You definitely don't want to land here with your foot open because that takes the hip with it. Hey, Davey Reed, that foot and that hip are definitely connected. So it's a great question. Yes, when you stride, you want to stride here and get to here, or you want to go ahead and get here so you can clear those hips, okay? So first body part is the feet. Pretty important, right? Stance doesn't matter, but stride does. Make sure your stride is not putting you in position to fail, all right? Next body part is the hips. Why are the hips important? All right, repeat after me. 85% of your potential energy comes from the rotation of the body, okay? There's 2 types of motion used in hitting. Rotary motion and linear motion. Rotary motion moves energy up and down. Linear motion moves energy horizontally. Got it? Ready? You guys math majors, smart guys. 85% of your potential energy comes from the rotation of the body. The other 15% comes from the forward movement or the linear motion. You with me? So watch my swing. All right, I'm gonna do it for the camera and for you guys. Watch my swing. There's a little bit of linear, a little bit of forward movement, and a whole lot of rotary movement. See the difference? All right, so which one's more important?
Rotary.
Why?
Power.
Because it's 85%. All right, so is it more important to move through the ball or just sit and spin? More important to sit and spin. The hips are the doors. The hips have got to